So, welcome everyone to a new episode of Art Side of Life, and I'm super happy to have Daniel here. Hello!
Hello.
So, welcome, and I'm really happy that you joined us here because I am very curious about your story. And as some of you guys already know, I interviewed Kevin some time ago, and I learned also about David, where we talked about the traditional art, and yeah, he went through the program with Kevin. So I wanted to hear his story, and hopefully you guys as well. So if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself at the beginning, how did you start it, and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I was one of those kids who did not have the, oh, this kid's gonna become an artist one day story. That was not me at all. Actually, growing up, I never considered myself to be artistic. Um, but I was into writing stories, and I guess I did do some like random drawings to go with the stories that I made when I was really, really young. Um, but no, like, no one ever thought that my art was good or anything. I didn't really even have a passion for it. And but then when I was 15, my mom had heard about some student who had done really well at this art school
Mm-hmm.
locally nearby. That he was teaching that school. And so my brother went, and then eventually I went along. And I remember at first I didn't even want to go because I was afraid that like my creative juices were going to be lost if I got some kind of official education or something. Couldn't be further from the truth. But I went to the class, and Kevin, he showed me some of the basics, how to hold a pencil, how to fill in a square, and then eventually he taught me how to make a gradient. And seemed pretty straightforward. But then after he finished, he said, "Come back to me when it's perfect." And I was thinking, perfect? Like, okay, like that's kind of an odd thing to say. So I work on the gradient, and I do a pretty good job. And so I, go and I find Kevin. I say, "Hey, Kevin, I'm done." And he doesn't even go and look over at the gradient. He just asks me, "Is it perfect?" I'm like, "No." Like, I mean, come on, like nothing is perfect. And so then he says, "Well, go back, find out why it's not perfect, and make it perfect." And so,
That's a very good way to think about it. Yeah, yeah. And before we actually go to the details of like how
sure,
you were learning and stuff, so I would like to
yeah,
know like what actually motivated you to do art, and kind of what
yeah,
stage of your life you were in. Like high school, university, doing like a full
sure,
time job somewhere else, and like this little bit of your life story, like who
yeah,
are you kind of now, and
okay,
what is your like specialty and kind of this type of
yeah,
background.
sure, okay. So yeah, brief summary.
Yeah.
I got into art when I was 15, which is as I'm telling now. And then it was really when I was 17 years old that I decided I wanted to become a professional artist, which I now am. And then after I graduated from college with a marketing degree, I also realized that when I would have conversations with people, I actually would talk more about art education than my own art. And um, I just, my own story, as I'll be sharing, is one where, so I didn't have, like, I never even imagined that I could be doing what I can do now. And there's so many people out there who, when they're kids, they want to become an artist, but then just life just tells them that they can't. And so to really be able to say like, hey, I'm one of those kids who didn't even have any special talent to begin with, and yet this training has kind of brought me there, and to just show the people that it's possible is really a rewarding thing. And so I've really put a lot of time into that as well, in addition to my professional fine art. But the fine art that I do is classical style oil painting,
Hmm.
and I really enjoy portraits. I really love portraits, and I've recently been loving it even more. Is just trying, capturing who somebody is such a neat thing. But I also love narrative pieces, like telling a story within one painting is also a really fascinating thing for me, and I enjoy those kinds of pieces as well.
Yeah, and now
So,
you work mostly freelance or commission
yeah,
based, or yeah, so
yeah,
freelance full
commission
time.
based. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
So
that's basically the brunt of my work is commission based, and then I also work with Evolve Artist, which is um, the online art program that we offer. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, probably you guys noticed, you know, like if you're like listening or watching now on the Art Side of Life website, I also mention Evolve program because, as you might know, I am not an expert in oil painting or traditional portraits. So we partnered with Evolve to kind of bring you also this experience if you would be interested in this type of thing. So yeah, so you can check it out there, and I will also put link in the description. But because I think it's super interesting the way to learn all of these skills, because it's not only about the traditional art, but also the values and how to master the traditional techniques and everything together, and how to sell yourself also on the market to actually
hmm
earn money. So yeah, so this is also what I guess inspired you to do this program when you were like, okay, I want to
Yes.
learn.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it was really I'll get there, but it was when I was 17 when everything started to click to me because I started taking art, and then it was till later that I really realized like, wow, I want to do this and I want to take this seriously.
Yeah.
Um,
So, what made you decide for example, traditional or the oil paints, or like, did you decide for that? I want to do traditional, and then there was the program with Kevin when they were teaching with oils, or were you like, I don't care which tools at the beginning, and I just want to like make something like realistic, or what was your motivation or like decision making in this process, like how to learn and
yeah,
what?
I really didn't have any motivation in the beginning at all. Like my mom just brought me to the class, and I was definitely open-minded. You know, I enjoyed the idea of making art, but I didn't really care what medium it was. So I was kind of just going through the motions a lot when I was just a kid, and didn't really start to find, you know, the intention until later. But now I definitely enjoy oil painting. There's just so much depth and depth to it that you can create, and I love that. You know, there's like the amount of layers that you can create, and how detailed you can get. Um, and so, yeah, I've just fallen in love with it the more I work with it.
Yeah, and so what was kind of the thing which helped you progress the most? If you now, when we talked about the box with shading and the square, so
Yeah.
was there like something else
Oh
in the
yeah.
process you want to mention? Like this is like
Abs-
the crazy progress.
yeah. So yeah, let me get back to that grading story because that really sets the stage for my personal story. So Kevin had told me, you know, find out why the grading is not perfect and make it perfect. And as you can imagine, that really frustrated me. But I went back to the gradient, and I, you know, kept working on it. I'm just thinking all the time, like, you know, who is this guy who thinks that, you know, something could be perfect? And I keep working, and I just was, you know, working harder. And finally, you know, maybe an hour later, Kevin comes over and he says, okay, that's good enough. You can stop. And so I left class that day with no limitations about what I could achieve. Because, you know, it's not every day that someone comes up to you and says that something needs to be perfect. You know, like we hear, you know, like, oh, like, you know, do a good job, or, you know, do your best. But those words are often that there's so much you can settle on, you know, because someone can say do your best, but then in the same breath say, oh, but at least you did your best, you know. Um, and so, you know, for Kevin to kind of say like, this is what your standards are, and but I'm putting your standards up here. And at first, I didn't even think I could get there, but he just shattered that ceiling, I guess, for me. And so it was so challenging that it kind of kept me coming back, and so I kept coming back to that school because it was challenging and it was so rewarding. You know, within a few months, I was producing photorealistic drawings, and you know, it was just like the coolest thing. It's like, wow, I'm focusing on these little things that Kevin is teaching me, and I'm getting these results. But I had to really apply my brain, and I had to push my limits, you know, above what I originally thought I could do.
Yeah.
Because again, I really just stumbled into this whole world of art, and I never imagined that I could be doing anything like this, which wasn't even a thought in my head, you know. Um, and so then over time, about yeah, so then I took 2 years of just taking class once a week, 2.5 hours, and by the end of it, I had produced this painting called Troy. It's on my website, and it was really after that painting that I began something shifted in me. It wasn't just following this process anymore and making cool art, but it was actually I began to see the world differently. You know, um, like I could be in a kitchen and I see like a stovetop, and you know that stovetop is made up of values, edges, and colors, or the combination of them creates that. And then you put the frying pan on, and you get the chicken going, and the starts to like angrily sizzle, and smoke starts coming out, and then the seasoning comes in. You put the spinach on, the spinach kind of like melts to the chicken, and all these things. They're just values, edges, and colors, and the combination of them is, and so it's like I began to see the world differently. Like the process that Kevin gave me at that time, those 2 years back. Obviously, when we teach someone, we don't want someone to stick with the process, be stuck in a process at the end of their journey of learning. When you get to professional level work, you don't want to be locked into a process anymore. But the process in the beginning, what it does is it gives you rules, it gives you those basic building blocks, a foundation to kind of set your feet on. And so what I had been learning while following the process was how to see differently, how to see things and break them down for what they were, simplify them in my head, and then be able to rebuild it. And so, that's really what art is all about. It's like changing the way that you see things.
Yeah.
And so once I realized that I was now seeing the world differently, I then decided I want to express I express what I'm seeing, and that's when I decided I want to become an artist and I want to take this seriously. So it wasn't the most straightforward journey where I wanted to be an artist and I made it happen. I really kind of stumbled my way into it, but it was because the amount of results those little successes along the way helped me realize that this was possible, and it was something I didn't even imagine I could do in the first place. So
yeah, for sure. And if someone can actually show you like how you can observe and see the real life, because you can try to copy other artists at the beginning when you're learning and just see what techniques they use and combine. But I mean, you don't understand why they made the choice or how they simplified. So if someone can help you to understand this, then you can progress faster. And it's like, I understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really enjoy just like even talking with friends and sharing, like if you look at, just like take a look at this thing, you think it's black, but there's actually, all this stuff is happening visually, in this black object. And it kind of just opens their mind a little bit to the visual world that we live in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, because also when I started to study color and light and how it reflects in the world and different light conditions and different materials, how they reflect the light, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And and when you translate it into art, and it's just super fascinating for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So true. And if you think about also your learning process and, what made you progress the most, but maybe also what was your most difficult time, of your artistic career? Like when did you struggle the most?
Yeah. I did struggle to follow the rules for a while. Especially because we often think about art as this thing where it's like, well, art is the one place where rules don't exist,
It's still physics.
Yeah. And so I was constantly breaking the rules and trying to do things my own way and not listening to Kevin. And I just kept, tanking on my own. I really couldn't do it on my own. I kept trying to do something this way, and what if I do it like that? And just hit one wall after another, and I wasn't able to get the result I wanted. But then after seeing that, it helped me realize, oh, actually, this process that I've been following is really the way to go. So that was a struggle. And then also temperature shifts, for sure. I remember, you put like I'll say like a white object up on the table, and it has a yellow light on it, and I trying to break that mold. It's like it's not actually white. It has to be something other than white. I can't just take titanium white and just put it down and put it on the canvas. It doesn't work like that. Um, and just learning to be able to see the different color shifts and everything was it took a long time, but now that I see it, it's impossible not to see every day.
Yeah, exactly. And when you start noticing also the colors of the shadows, right? That it's not
Yeah.
always just like dark.
Hmm.
And like when does it like affect the color of the object, and the as we mentioned, the surface and the other lights in the room or outside and all of this. And when you, as you mentioned, when you
Absolutely.
see it once, you're like, yeah, it's just there. And
Uh-huh.
as you mentioned the rules, it's yeah, I was also first like, okay, so what kind of rules you need to learn and all of that. But like also I think, if I'm not mistaken, like Picasso, he was drawing realistic paintings at the beginning, and he learned all the
Hmm.
rules, and then he was just, okay, now I can break them because I understand.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually my favorite quote by him is learn the rules like a pro so that you can break them like an artist.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, because then you can start to be creative, and yeah.
Hmm. Right.
Definitely,
But
that makes
you
sense.
can't break the rules until you know what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
yeah.
that's a little bit more, yeah, like technical, because sometimes people think like, oh yeah, okay, I want to be creative and artist, so that's why I do art, because I don't want to follow any rules. But then it limits you in some
Hmm.
sense, I would say. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
yeah, of course, we all like to be creative. We love colors or just like black and white simplicity or something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, to be able to create
Yeah.
something cool, we
Right.
need
Well,
some
I
rules.
think when you understand what the rules are, then when you decide to break it, you're breaking it with a certain intention.
Yeah.
You have a reason in mind, and you're able to, like the rules, they become like a tool belt. They're not like something that restricts you anymore. They're just a tool that you can use. And so, you can apply, like, I'll have these rules working for me in this painting, and then I'm going to break a few right here in such a way that's going to kind of create this effect, or however that works. But it's so much more sophisticated than this chaotic, mess that you would make otherwise if you're just, trying to emotionally vomit on a piece of canvas, if you will.
And did you see your progress like right away after like few hours, or was it when you compared like few months, and did you repaint the maybe the same piece, or how was it like? Was it the 10,000 hours? As people say, the practice.
Yeah, it did take practice, but I was producing photorealistic work within a few months, and
Hmm.
so I mean, yeah, so it was very, very rewarding right off the bat. So, and again, at the time, I didn't really understand like how it was that I was making those photorealistic works. Um, because I didn't have the understanding. I was just following the process, and then the understanding came later. But yeah, I would say relatively, it was pretty immediate. It still took lots of hours and discipline to get on the other side of understanding.
Hmm.
But in terms of just following the process, that the results were pretty immediate. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you still practice in like, I don't know, if you go outside to draw random people on the street, or is it mostly that you draw in your studio, or how do you like practice now?
Yeah, most of the time I paint within the studio.
Hmm.
I've been doing one fun thing lately where I'll just invite my friends to come sit and model, and we have a
Hmm.
bunch of artist friends, and we'll all just paint that model. It's been a lot of fun. And then every once in a while, I will go outside and do some plein air painting or outside painting, and that's really really fun too. But yeah, most of my work is within the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have like, do you limit yourself with, for example, the color palettes and like tools you use? Also, especially when you go out, when you have like maybe a limited amount you can take with you, or do you use
Yeah,
the same tools when you are out or in the studio?
that's actually funny you mentioned that because just the other day, it's funny, like there's no end to art education, right? Because just the other day, Kevin was telling me, he's like, "Have you noticed that all of your skin tones, you use the same exact color palette?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's right," And so, yes, I guess the answer is I do use a limited color palette, but whether or not I should, I am still learning that one.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so you have your favorite go-to colors for now,
Yes, I do.
and you want to go explore new tones, I guess, in the future.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
some Hulk type of colors, or I
Right.
don't know,
Yeah.
green thick tones, and I don't
Yeah.
know. That might be the case. And you have your, I guess, favorite brand maybe for painting because a lot of oil painters use the that one. What you're using as well, right?
The
Or
old hall.
yes, yeah, 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 the
Yeah.
Old Holland. Or do you also use different brands?
Yeah, so I just use Old Holland. I haven't experimented a lot with other paints, but I did start off with a student grade paint, which definitely did the job at first, but
Yeah.
then and I thought it was fine, and then Kevin gave me a set of Old Holland, and it's sort of like once you get a smartphone, you can't go back. It's sort of like that. It's like once you get Old Holland, then you just can't go back,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so stuck with it. Yeah.
yeah. But what helps maybe someone who is just starting out, it's good to try maybe one or two paints, even if you don't sign up for like a big program and you want to try like more expensive paint, and you have maybe one or two favorite colors, and you don't go for photorealistic yet, and you just want to try and experiment. Maybe the investment into like one or two paints tubes, then it's like it's good to try to have the feel for the color and at least try like icons or like painting a leaf or something at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm I'm a big fan of experimenting, so I would always encourage that. Um, I guess in that regard, I just would be careful that, like, I mean, you could take a piece of you could take like a little bit of really expensive paint, but if you don't know how to use it, you might be, it might not be the best investment if you're just like, using it in a way that it shouldn't be used, I guess. So
Yeah, yeah.
there is a little bit of knowledge that can definitely help with experimenting
Of
with things
course.
like
I
that.
mean, that's. I
But
mean,
yeah,
it's always better if you have someone, to
yeah,
save you time and basically money experimenting. But
yeah.
if someone doesn't want to, then they can just try. That's like if I want to, for example, try different brands of pencils or paints, then I try like one maybe. If I'm like, oh, and then if I love it, then I find someone who can like help me with
Hmm.
like, okay, this is how you can use them, and this is what you can do, and
Sure,
like
yeah.
all the crazy unlocking possibilities.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. I guess I don't concern myself too much with, like what specific, brand, like what
Hmm.
specific like type of paint to use. I mean, obviously there is a certain level of importance to it, but at the end of the day, if you can mix, the color that you are going for, then
Yeah,
you'll still get like the results, say like if within a painting. And so, as long as you have a palette that is wide enough to be able to capture those things,
yeah.
and that's again just again like experimenting is always great. So I'm always encouraging that. Um, but yeah, so.
Yeah, and now when you are working on commissions and working with clients, how did you find the first client when you were thinking like, okay, now I'm ready to do the commissions?
Hmm. Yeah, so my first client was the dean of the business school at my college, and so um, I think yeah when I started to kind of take the art seriously and everything, that's when I began to focus on networking and just creating good relationships, including the faculty at the college that I went to, and so I was at some Cinco de Mayo event, and the dean of the business school, she's amazing. She always is, wanting to engage with her students and get to know them. And so she came down and she sat down with me and we talked. And I told her about what I was doing with art and everything. And she's like, oh, there's this piece that we want to be redone. And at first, I wasn't sure how serious she was, because there's a lot of times when you're talking with people and you're sharing that you do art, they have some crazy idea that they want to happen, but then that they're not actually serious. Um, but this time I was like, you know what, I should just ask. So I sent her an email and made it very clear with her that I was very serious about it. Like, yes, I could do this for you. And she loved the idea. And so she got back to me and we talked. And Yeah, so I did the portrait as a posthumous portrait of the founding donor of the business school at Seton Hall, and it was unveiled at their 65th anniversary.
Oh,
So
very
it's pretty
nice.
neat. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, yeah. And when you were like doing this like first client work, basically, how did you know how much to charge, for example, or did you ask them for a budget, or who did you ask?
Yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that this is the best idea, but my original plan was, in my head, I wanted to do it for free because this was just my first one. So I wanted to get kind of my name out there, to be able to say that I did a portrait and everything. And I told her that. And of course, she's the dean of the business school. So she was not okay with, me doing a painting for free. So she insisted I charge. And so then after that, I looked at, just what are the amount of hours that I think I'll spend and what am I willing to give away my time for? And so that's how I kind of came to my number. It was very, very small. And then from there, I began to, just slowly build up the value of my work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And now, how do you find new clients? As you mentioned, networking. Do you go to some special events, or do you just talk about it on social media, or how do they find you, or if you find them?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that networking is very important because you can have, there's so many great artists out there, especially with the world getting smaller. It's easier to connect to really any artist that you want. But what still hangs in the balance is that you have people want to buy from who they know, and which is kind of where the whole relationships aspect comes in. And so really just, focusing on the people that I know and investing in those relationships, I think is very important. So, but yeah, I am a member of the Salmagundi Club in New York City. And so I'll go to some events there and, even connecting to people within my church, um, and just, getting to know people and letting people know who you are, I think is a really good place to start. Yeah. And then from, because everyone knows somebody else, right? And so it just goes from there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, you just do your best work you can, and then when they are happy with it, they just recommend you further, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And if you think about like maybe memorable projects from the past, which one is like stuck in your head? You mentioned one of the first client. Was
Yeah.
there something you were painting like, I don't know, like blue octopus on someone's shoulder or something, which was like super memorable work?
Maybe nothing crazy like that. I did do a really fun commission though of King David, from the Bible. And that was really neat because my client, she was Christian, just like I am, but she was also a history teacher.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, I had to be very, very particular and specific about, I need to, make this as accurate as I can because I wanted to honor her and honor her values and everything. And so making that piece and the story of David in the Bible is very, very rich, and there's so much that's going on in his life. And trying to capture all of that into one painting was a big challenge, and which I loved. It was so much fun, really, really fun. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was probably one of my most memorable commissions for sure.
So did you what was your process in this, when you were like, obviously you knew the person or character you are going to
Uh-huh.
paint, right? So did you
Yep.
research also the types of outfits or details of the embroideries or these type of things, or did you read more about the emotional expressions or something like that, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I looked into as much as I could. Unfortunately, there's not a ridiculous amount of data available about King David since he was way, way, way back. Um, but I did study previous paintings that had been done of him to kind of see how did they portray it. And then I did look into the articles of clothing and architecture and things like that. And then I read I just read his story in the Bible thoroughly, and then after I did that, then while I was painting, I actually would listen to the story again on through my headphones to kind of just fully just immerse me into that time and into that person. Yeah.
And so how did you decide also on the pose, for example, or the composition? Did you do different types of sketches or what to kind of show through the pose?
Yeah. So we yeah, I did a bunch of different sketches, and um, we started off with my client. She had a particular idea in mind, and so that was kind of the launching point for that. And so we had him, kind of leaning on his balcony. He had just kind of established his kingdom. He's now, King David, this young man, and then he's contemplatively kind of thinking back on his life, and there's all these different articles, nearby him that are kind of little puzzle pieces to his story.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of what we ended up settling on. But yes, it was a bunch of sketches, and then submitting the sketches to my client for her approval, and then from there, fleshing out the full painting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so you were doing the storytelling already at the sketch stage, like to show, like, okay, this means this, this is how this is connected,
Absolutely.
and then you recommend one composition and sketch, right? You want to go
Yes.
further with, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, because it's always like when you put so much thought in the artwork, you are like more proud of it after it's finished and all of that. So yeah, so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you think about the future projects, is there something you would love to paint in the, some upcoming months or year, or maybe some brand you would like to collaborate on, like range of like products, maybe with some realistic paintings or something? Like, what is like your dream scenario there?
Yeah. In general, I really do. I really have enjoyed the painting scenes from the Bible, and there's really quite a tradition of that. And you just go back through time and look at all the amazing paintings that have been done. Like one of my favorites is by a painter, Solomon. I think it's like Solomon. I forget his name exactly, but he does this painting of Samson, and it's just incredible, where he's turning and twisting. He's being restrained by these guards, and then you have Delilah is there in the back, pointing at him, and it's just so powerful. It's really cool to kind of take this ancient story and to make it kind of come back alive. So to be able to do more of those is definitely very interesting to me. And I can even see like doing like those on like a large scale, like large paintings with really complicated stories going on would be really fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, like complicated compositions, because there is always some super intense light or something, and there is a lot of going on, so you have to really work with the values so to kind of separate everything so it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really challenging when we get into those big paintings. There's so much to juggle, and the more that it's almost like the harder it can get sometimes. It's like the more and then your standard for yourself goes higher because you know more, and it just keeps pushing you forward. But yeah, that would be amazing to do stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, like some 10-meter long painting or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. And
I don't.
sorry.
I don't know if I have the capacity to do that right now, but to be able to juggle all those things. But definitely one day would be amazing to do those. Yeah.
And if you think about now, when you're, as you mentioned, like learning all the time, is there something you are now learning at this point, like some special, I don't know, like book you are reading, or some special tool you are like really practicing to master?
Yeah. So like I'd mentioned I'll be doing the paintings of the live model portraits, and I'm just learning a lot from that. We have about 3 hours to capture someone's face, and so getting quicker at that, but also just learning how to not just capture someone's likeness, but also to capture like the bone structure, like where the bone structure is, and then where you have like more fleshy areas, and what colors are you going to use to capture those different things, or how are you going to use your edges and your values in order to capture all of that. And so that's really what has been a big focus, and really fun for me as well. I'm learning a lot from it.
Yeah. So the live practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And what about like advice maybe you would give to young self, something you wish you knew before you started this whole journey?
I would say I think actually, I'll say maybe from a business point of view that um, it really comes down to valuing the person across from you, um, and you thinking in those terms. I think business just becomes so much more easy. You know, like if you're self-absorbed and thinking about how about yourself all the time when you're gonna get yourself around this business transaction or whatever, it's just it becomes awkward, it becomes confusing, all stuff. But if you just stop and think about like how can I guess like love this person, how can I show that this person is valued, and how can I serve this person? um, I think that really just speaks volumes into like that's the kind of person that I want to be, and to get better at. But that's the advice that I would give. It's just to really focus on other people and serve other people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So how you can basically help others and always kind of give back as well in the like client relationship or just like with friends as
hmm
well and like everywhere.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, in everything. But I think with business, like I remember when I was in college, one of my professors, she stopped the class and just, I don't know if how many of you know this, but business people are noble people, and we all kind of like stopped and took a step back, and she went on, but it's like that idea, business people are noble people. We often think, especially in the art world, we think of business as like, oh, you're selling yourself away, you know,
Yeah.
and you're kind of maybe you're settling, and so you're looking to get money. You're taking all of your expression and you're trying to convert it into dollars or something like that, and it has this like negative connotation. Um, but really, like what business is all about, it's like I have this gift that I want to share with the world because I know that this gift is a good thing, and if I can share that in a way that's going to like love and serve and show other people that they're valued, um, then again, that's a really, really good thing that I want to pursue. But then how do I multiply that? Well, in order to be able to keep doing that, I'll be needed to like receive something back that allows me to do more of it. And so, kind of turning the way we think about business upside down in a way. Business is all about serving people. It's not about like what you can receive out of it. Think about like, it's like someone could invent like a new cure for a disease, but it's the business person that goes out and finds who needs it, and they figure out a way to get it to them at a price that they can afford. And so, again, that's a good thing. It's not just, it's not like the business person is just trying to, obviously, of course, there are unethical ways to go about business. And I obviously don't want to be unethical about that. But yeah, I think there's a way of going about business that's actually very selfless and that can be focused on serving other people.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, most of us don't make art to make money, but still we need to make money to be able to make more art. So it's,
hmm
yeah, so, and then you can make the world a better place because it's nicer and more colorful and full of art if you are actually able to live from it because you are able to make more and you
Yeah,
basically either inspire others or make their homes more nicer and livable and cozy.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yep, absolutely.
So there are like, yeah, many reasons to make art and not to be afraid to actually put it out there that you want to sell it and you
hmm
basically are like hey, making other people more happy with it or even brands or someone, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think Paris has the most art in the world, and it also has the highest tourism rates.
Yeah.
And so, really speaks volumes about how valuable art really is. It's not just mud pushed around by a hairy stick on canvas.
Yeah. Because I
That's
mean,
something that Kevin likes to say.
yeah, because there is like art everywhere. Either it's a traditional or it's a pattern or a T-shirt. Like if you walk around on the street, you just see art everywhere. It's
Hmm.
like advertising on the buses, yeah, patterns on the clothes. I don't know, the paintings in the galleries and everywhere. It's just everywhere. So you just need to find your own area where you can contribute and basically make living out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, definitely thank you so much for all of these like super awesome insights. And I'm happy that, yeah, as you mentioned, that you took the course and you fell in love with the realistic paintings and the art, and now you can make living out of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hear my story and just hear my thoughts, I guess. I'm
Yeah.
still got a lot to learn.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, all of us, right? So
Yeah.
lifelong journey to
Yeah.
improve and learn. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, and thanks everyone who was listening or watching, and hope you guys are inspired. And if you are interested in also the Evolve course, as we mentioned, it's also in the link in the description. And yeah, let me know what you think and how you guys practice. And yeah, so thank you, Danielle, for being here again. And yeah, so see you everyone in the next episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.